When exactly did we start living our lives like ticking machines? This grand experiment that altered the very course of human civilization began in 1881 at the Midvale Steel Works in Pennsylvania. At that time, factory management existed in a state of primitive, decentralized chaos. Workers relied on experiential knowledge passed down through generations of apprenticeships, granting them absolute control over the specific details and rhythm of their own labor. Frederick Winslow Taylor, a young engineer from a prominent background plagued by severe obsessive-compulsive tendencies, labeled this worker-led pacing as soldiering. He argued that this was not merely a waste of industrial productivity, but a direct existential challenge to the authority of management. Armed with a professional stopwatch calibrated to 1/10 of a second, Taylor entered the shop floor and launched the first systematic, ruthless dismantling of human motion in recorded history. He selected a Dutch immigrant laborer named Henry Knoll for his famous pig iron handling experiment. Knoll was physically robust, but Taylor did not demand raw strength. He demanded absolute mechanization and total biological obedience. Taylor decomposed the process of carrying a 92-pound pig of iron into over a dozen independent sub-movements: the specific angle of the lower back, the precise pressure of the finger grip, the shift in center of gravity upon standing, and the exact length of every single stride. He went as far as calculating the oxygen consumption, the heart rate, and the very frequency of the worker's breath under different inclines and loads. He discovered that through forced rhythmic control, a single worker's daily output could jump from 12.5 tons to a staggering 47.5 tons. To sustain this superhuman efficiency, Taylor mandated that Knoll remain in a state of total, motionless rest for exactly 43% of his working hours. This was not an act of humanitarian concern, but a calculated biological measure to prevent muscle fatigue from distorting standardized motion, thereby ensuring the maximum possible output rate throughout the day. Taylor proved a cold formula to the world: human autonomy is inversely proportional to industrial production. In 1898, Taylor moved his experimental theater to the Bethlehem Steel Company, where he launched his now legendary shoveling experiments. He observed 500 shovelers utilizing the exact same type of tool for everything from light coal ash to heavy iron ore. Taylor viewed this as a violation of physical logic, leading to a massive waste of kinetic energy. He launched a massive, 2-year measurement project, recording over 50,000 individual datasets to track every variable of human fatigue and material weight. He reached an incredibly precise conclusion: to achieve maximum efficiency, the optimal load per shovelful must be stabilized at exactly 21 pounds. To implement this, he established the first tool standardization laboratory in history, designing dozens of specialized shovels for every conceivable material, from large, shallow scoops for light ash to short, heavy-duty blades for heavy ores. Workers were stripped of the right to choose their tools based on experience, marking the total loss of labor sovereignty. Concurrently, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth refined Taylor's research into a psychological and physiological science. They developed early motion picture cameras to record workers' movements and decomposed all hand motions into 17 fundamental standardized units called thurbligs. These thurbligs included specific categories: search, find, select, grasp, hold, transport loaded, position, assemble, use, disassemble, inspect, preposition, release load, transport empty, rest, unavoidable delay, and plan. The Gilbreths went as far as attaching small electric bulbs to workers' limbs, utilizing long-exposure photography to track the geometric paths of their movements through space. Their research aimed to eliminate even a single centimeter of redundant movement or a millisecond of wasted effort. In their famous bricklaying experiments, they reduced the required motions from 18 down to 5, tripling production from 120 to 350 bricks per hour. However, this was effectively murdering the ancient art of masonry. The human being was no longer a biological entity, but a dynamic assembly of 17 standardized codes where every muscle twitch and every involuntary glance was subject to rigorous cost accounting. In 1913, Taylorism evolved into its terminal, most aggressive form at Henry Ford's Highland Park plant in Detroit, the moving assembly line. The introduction of the conveyor belt effectively snatched the last remnant of rhythmic sovereignty from human hands. The assembly time for a single car chassis plummeted from 12.5 hours to just 93 minutes. The assembly line turned the factory into a prison without walls, where every movement had to synchronize with the frequency of the belt. This high-intensity, monotonous labor led to a horrific and unsustainable labor turnover rate of 380% in 1913. To sustain production, Ford introduced the $5 day, double the market rate at the time. However, this money came with strings attached. Ford established a sociological department, an internal intelligence agency that dispatched investigators directly into workers' homes. These investigators conducted unannounced inspections to ensure workers were not drinking, gambling, and that their domestic environments were meticulously clean. If you failed to meet Ford's rigid moral and domestic standards, your premium pay was revoked instantly. The sociological department extended that surveillance into the very sanctuary of the bedroom. The human biological clock was now fully colonized. Eating, sleeping, and even basic bathroom breaks had to be precisely synchronized with the RPM of the conveyor belt. Human society began a wholesale alignment with machine rhythms, where any resistance to the pace was branded as a psychological abnormality or a moral failing. We won the battle for the affordable Model T, but the price was the systematic castration of the human spirit into a mere appendage of the industrial apparatus. This obsession with efficiency rapidly overflowed from the factory floor into every corner of society. In the 1920s, offices began introducing typing pools and standardized clerical workflows, a phenomenon known as the Taylorization of white-collar work. Even kitchen design was influenced, as social engineers advocated for household efficiency, dismantling domestic chores into timed, sequential steps. People were conditioned to believe that leisure was a dangerous leakage of output. The factory whistle replaced the crowing of the rooster as the conductor of community life. Working hours, eating times, and even basic bathroom breaks were standardized into a rigid shift schedule. This was not just a change in production, it was a wholesale colonization of the human lifestyle. We began to believe that any time not converted into measurable output was sinful. This profound fear of unproductive time was permanently sewn into the collective consciousness of modern humanity. While we won industrial prosperity, we simultaneously sold the sovereignty over our natural biological rhythms. As we entered the 21st century, Taylor's stopwatch was not retired to a museum. Instead, it evolved into even more covert and powerful algorithms. Today's algorithmic Taylorism no longer requires a foreman standing over your shoulder. It exists within the countdowns of delivery drivers, the online status monitors of office software, and even the screen time statistics on your personal smartphone. Data has become the new invisible whip. In modern logistics warehouses such as those operated by Amazon, workers wear haptic wristbands and utilize handheld scanners that record every single second spent reaching for a product. If your physical motion slows down by a mere few seconds relative to the algorithm's preset optimal value, the system automatically generates a disciplinary warning in the background. The tracking systems today can precisely calculate a worker's time-off task, or TOT, measuring unauthorized breaks down to the single minute. Similarly, delivery platform algorithms calculate the shortest possible delivery routes with absolute mathematical precision, intentionally ignoring variables like traffic congestion, extreme weather, or the physiological exhaustion of the human rider. This digital surveillance is far more invasive than physical monitoring. It is embedded directly into our cerebral cortex. We chase faster logistics and higher performance metrics, unknowingly sacrificing our last remnants of leisure and wonder to this insatiable machine of productivity. The ultimate victory of Taylorism lies not in the renovation of the physical factory floor, but in how it successfully convinced us to monitor ourselves voluntarily and pathologically. When we feel anxious about a lack of productivity during our holidays, we have officially become the perfect clockwork organisms. We have become our own harshest foreman, carving away at our own souls under the gaze of invisible, omniscient algorithms. The story of Taylorism is, at its core, a profound tragedy about the difference between possessing and being possessed. To run faster, we severed our own legs. For the sake of absolute efficiency, we ignored our basic humanity. When we finally won every single second of measured time, we found ourselves standing at a desolate finish line, clutching a handful of clockwork springs, but forgetting how to feel the freedom we sought. This efficiency poisoning is far more insidious than any chemical toxin. It lingers in our very consciousness, making it impossible for us to simply stop and breathe. In our pursuit of perfect mechanical engagement, which part of our soul did we leave behind on that never-ending assembly line? This 150-year-long clockwork nightmare continues to grind forward, and the ultimate price is a shattered human spirit that no longer knows how to slow down. We won the prosperity of industrial civilization, but we lost the most fundamental dignity of a living being, the sovereignty over our own time. If you wish to pierce through the artificial fog of progress and see the true price tags hidden behind our modern civilization, please subscribe to The Hidden Cost. Some truths are heavy to bear, but only by facing them can we avoid becoming mere lubricant for the grinding gears of history. Thank you for watching.